Fabulous. Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this CIWEM webinar. Today, we are going to be looking at preparing for CIWEM Chartership, and we're particularly looking at the review of B3 and B4 competencies. So this is part of a series of webinars that we're holding at the moment, and it's hosted by the CIWEM Urban Drainage Group and supported by the new members group as well. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So the webinar will be recorded. We only put the recordings of the events up onto the CIWEM website, onto YouTube, when the panelists give us permission to do so, and as long as there's no copyright issues. So you can view any of the past webinars that we've done. They should be on the YouTube channel, so you can go and have a look at that later on. If you do experience any technical issues and you need assistance, please raise your hand and use the chat feature on Zoom to let us know, and somebody should be able to help you out with that. If you have any problems accessing the chat, please use the Q&A. We will take your questions throughout. This is a bit of an informal discussion, so if you'd like to put any questions or make a comment, please use the Q&A facility. That's a big part of this. So hopefully you can get as much out of this experience as you can. Chat should be technically for technical issues. So when asking your question, please state who you are posing the question to. There is an hour's CPD attributed to this webinar. However, we do not provide CPD certificates as it's not accredited training CPD. Brilliant. Okay, and a little bit about CIWEM. So we are a Royal Chartered Professional Body and independent charity. So you can follow us on the website. We've got several links there. I think hopefully Lucy will be able to post them in the chat. And we also have our publications. We've got the Journal of Flood Risk Management. We've got the Water and Environmental Journal, and we've got the Environment magazine. And if you are thinking about addressing all your competencies, they are great sources for addressing your e-competencies. So please do check those out as well. Okay, so we are a worldwide organisation. We've got over 11,000 members all over the world. Hopefully we'll have a lot on today in this webinar. And like I said earlier, this is hosted by the Urban Drainage Group. So the CIWEM Urban Drainage Group sustains the excellence of people professionally engaged in urban drainage management now and for future generations. So this is built on the original WAPOG, which was established in 1984. And the aims are to advance the science and practice of urban drainage, promote education, and establish and maintain appropriate standards of competence for urban drainage management professionals. Okay. Like I said, we're also co-hosted by the new members group for this urban drainage group. This is a great group that are focused on activities for early careers professionals. So like this webinar today and part of the rest of the series that we've worked on, looking at things that are specifically targeted for early careers professionals. So there's a LinkedIn page there. Please do go and follow them. Fabulous group. Okay, so today's discussion is really talking about the B competencies. So we are looking at how we respond to things, how we respond when things change, and how do we make sure the solutions we implement continue to deliver value over the long term. So whereas the competency B1 and B2 looked at problems and options, these two competencies address change and solutions. So B3 focuses on managing change when circumstances shift, and B4 on planning and implementing and evaluating solutions and ensure they continue to meet their objectives. So together, they demonstrate your ability to lead projects through change, manage risk, and achieve sustainable results. I will go back to this slide later, but I'd just like to introduce our speakers for today. We have 4 wonderful speakers, and they're all here to share their experience and knowledge when it comes to addressing these B competencies. So we have Margaret Devonport from Yorkshire Water. We have Graham Campbell from Binnies. We have Sahani Chowdhury from ACOM and Cam Puvanakumar from Binnies. So please take this opportunity to ask as many questions as you can. These are very knowledgeable people. Um, so yeah, so I think I have asked each of the people to go through, or each of our presenters to go through and tell us their name, their job title, and their years of experience when they got chartered, and what's one lesson you learned from your own chartership professional development journey that you still use today. We'll hopefully get some really good insight from them. So I think we'll go over to Margaret, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's all right. Can
Cool.
you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll just do an introduction of me first, then we'll go through everyone's introductions, right? And then
Yeah.
we'll come back to the thing.
Yeah.
So Margaret Devonport, I'm head of wastewater asset management at Yorkshire Water. So that means I see currently everything from when it comes out of people's houses, goes through our network, through our treatment works, and through our bioresources. All of that in terms of asset management sits within my remit and my team's remit. And I suppose I've got, if you talk about my history, I've got over 20 years of industry experience. Started way back doing, your standard infra modeling design work all those years ago. Just about remember that. And then moved through the different sort of stages of my career through that. So I'm chartered with IC and with CIWEM. I'm a chartered member of CIWEM. I'm a chartered uh, engineer as well. So I've got sort of those both those sort of elements. And I'm here because I currently, along with being part of the main UDG committee, I am also at times doing some of the review assessments for CIWEM. So I've sat on a number of different panels in terms of when people come to their interview to then do the questioning of them. So hopefully I can give that part of the experience and that sort of element. God, my actual becoming chartered was so long ago. What have I learned from that? I've definitely learned the fact that about acronyms. We all use different acronyms, so always ask the fun question in terms of going, what did you actually mean by the acronym? Because you can speak to people in the same industry and think you're talking about the same thing, and reality you are not. So I think that's something I think I've learned from going through the different sort of chartership positions and interviews, etc., that I've supported on. So yeah, shall I pass over to someone?
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think we'll pass on to Graham. You want to go next? Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki, and thanks, Margaret. Yeah, my name's Graham Campbell. I work at Binnies in our Solutions by Nature team as an associate director for SUDS and rainwater management. So the team I sit in looks at delivering nature-based solutions for all the way through from concept through to build and all the stages in between. So that's our sort of remit of what I do. I've got about 18 years experience in industry. For the first half of my career, I worked for the London Borough of Enfield. And a couple of years into that role coincided with the passing of the 2010 Floods and Water Management Act. And so that gave new responsibilities to local authorities as lead local flood authorities. And so I worked on many of the aspects that came along with those duties, such as investigating flooding issues, input into flood risk management strategies, strategic flood risk assessments, and then also got involved in the delivery of capital schemes such as highway level SUDS, constructed wetlands, and natural flood management projects at larger scales, including woodland creation and beaver introduction, which was a fun one. So more recently, for the last 4 years, I've been part of the Solutions by Nature team at Binnies, as I mentioned, working mainly with water companies on river restoration projects, SUDS and NFM projects. And my main role is to be the sort of technical coordination across all the different disciplines that feed into those projects, which I really enjoy. I got chartered quite late on in 2022, about 14 years into my career. That process coincided with my move to consultancy, and I had a sort of opportunity to sort of have a bit of a pause and put my chartership proposal or application together. I loved Margaret's one about acronyms. I think that's really good. And I also have that philosophy now, which I probably adopted more in recent years of whenever anyone mentions an acronym, I always ask. If I don't know what it means, I always ask because you don't look silly. You look like you're engaging in the conversation. So I think that's always a good lesson. So I'll just piggyback off that one from Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. But then I guess the other lesson to take from my chartership experience is that I wish I'd done a bit more documenting as I went through the early part of my career in terms of some of the lessons I'd learned, and collating those. I kind of did it more as a retrospective exercise. And I think it's always a good idea to record any kind of lesson you learn as you experience it, make some notes on it in the moment. I can't actually say that I always do that and always practice what I preach, but it's a good exercise and a good thought experiment. I think, when you're going through things, often they might seem quite insignificant, they might seem really significant, but either way, just note them down. That's really something I probably take through as a lesson. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I can definitely relate to that. It took me 20 years to go for my chartership, and looking back on my 20-year career and trying to remember what I did yesterday is hard enough. But I do always try and encourage the people that I mentor to write down what they're doing after each project and kind of relate that to what some of the competencies. I'm sure they'll thank me for it one day. But
yeah, hopefully.
That's great. Thanks for that, Graham.
No
Sahani, should we go to you next? That's okay.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Suhani Chaudhary and I have over 8 years of experience in water and environment domain. And my skills include hydrological and hydraulic assessment, and I do a lot of flood risk assessment required for planning applications from small scale to big scale projects across UK and Ireland. And I also do project management and stakeholder engagement. And I got chartered in 2025. And for me, the one lesson or many lessons I learned from the chartership. So I think like chartership, especially for me, was not like one day thing. It was a whole journey, and during that journey, I learned that chartership will give you opportunity to reflect or have appreciation for so many aspects of professionalism. Like beyond, I'm a complete technical person, so beyond technical stuff, I learned about sustainability, health and safety, professional conduct, continuous development. So it will give you opportunity to look back and have a good appreciation for all these things that will make you, we can say, like a complete engineer. We should have all these understandings as well. And also it's a great opportunity to understand and have that big picture in your mind for whatever project you're delivering. So yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice. I think on a day-to-day basis, you tend to just be focusing on your on the jobs that you're doing and producing that output for the clients. It's definitely a great opportunity to have a think about your impact on the wider environment, and definitely that's great advice. Thank you. Cam, onto you.
Yeah, so my name is Cam Puinakuma. I think I had the same problem like last time. I had thought of different things that I could share, and Graham, Margaret, and Sohani stole my show, but I'll try my best.
Get the order, didn't we, Cam? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I should have gone first this time around. So I have been, so I'm a principal network modeler at Beneath, as well as have a project management responsibilities as well, which gives me both technical as well as the management or non-technical side of things, which is a great place to be, in my opinion. So I've been in the industry for 14 years, done several things, including network modeling, both clean and waste, and liked waste a lot more, so stayed dirty, and some people don't want to switch over. What did I learn that is different from these guys? I think I'll just piggyback on Suhani, what said. Technical skill is really, really critical, but we often ignore the softer skills, the communication, the management, and so we also need to focus on softer skill. So if you are someone who are preparing for your chartership, in my opinion, then please do focus on the softer skill. And we can never be 100% fully ready from a technical perspective. There's always things that we could learn. But if you focus on the other things as well, then it will make you a well-rounded professional, as Suhani said. Similarly, what Graham said, we often ignore, I mean, focusing on specifically in today's topic, we often ignore the smaller changes, the smaller impact that we make. And that could potentially end up being the biggest change. And if you don't keep record of it, you're going to really forget it. As you said, Nikki, we could look back at it and we often forget that, and we look at the bigger picture, and therefore we might not remember what happened then at that particular point. So having a good record is really helpful. Again, you asked me for one. I might add up a few more if that's okay. So the other thing is the confidence bit. So we all have, as an early career professional, in my opinion, even now, that imposter syndrome. Like, am I ready? Should I be in this status, in that role? So having been reviewed by a chartered professional institution like CIWEM, it gives you that added confidence. You don't need confidence from other people. I don't want to talk about philosophy here, but you don't need to rely on other people to give you confidence. But in some cases, having accreditation from another institution or peers is really helpful. Along with that, I often tell people that chartership is not a milestone. You don't just get into just because you have a CIWEM accreditation or CEng doesn't mean your development stops. It's about thinking ahead, maybe a fellowship or something else, or being in committee like Margaret and I was involved in the new member group, which is amazing. Just to put up there. And in addition, it could be mentoring other people and bringing them on board, and you see the benefit of it. So many different learning and probably benefits of becoming chartered, in my opinion. So I'll stop talking and let other people talk. Thank you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks, Cam. I think confidence is definitely one of the reasons why I put off getting my chartership for so long. And I can say that since getting chartered, it has helped me with my confidence as well. So yeah. Great. So thank you very much for everybody's introductions. We should now be going on to some questions. There doesn't seem to be many in there at the minute, so please do put your questions in.
Shall I start with an overview of the competencies then, Nikki?
Yes, go, Margaret, please.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
And then hopefully that will help with some of the questions as they come through.
Yeah.
So last time we did B1 and B2, as we said, which was more about assessing root causes, coming up with solutions, that core element you could call engineering, that's sort of expected even at that chartered CIWEM level. Whereas these ones are the ones which then people get a little bit more confused as to what to put in, let's face it, the B3 and the B4. So first off, just to remind everyone that there is on the CIWEM UDG website sort of a more detailed competency document which outlines more sort of bullet points in terms of what could fit within these different competencies, and it's sort of aligns with more of what we'd expect someone in the urban drainage group committee sort of be working on. So please, obviously, do go read that and look at that to help you as you move forward as well. But in the general sort of verbal update on the two, the B3 about ability to initiate and implement and manage change, there's different ways about thinking about this. So the more obvious answer and way to answer it is to say, I have a scope and I have a project and I'm working it through, and I may be the line manager for some or all of the team that are working on it, and something goes wrong. And it's okay in your CIWEM application to highlight that something went wrong, be that you accidentally set up the sims incorrectly and you lost a week of runs, or there were some problems out on site and the surveyors weren't able to do what was expected. If you're doing something more on the survey model sort of side of it, or even a member of staff suddenly needed to go off on leave. Elements like that you could bring in terms of saying, well, things are changed. You could even shockingly say that, say, your client at Yorkshire Water changed her mind on what she wanted. You could go for something like that as well. That's absolutely fine. But in those instances, it's about how you manage the change, how you look back, you take a step back, you see what the change is going to implement, you look at your program, your cost, your scope, and the quality of the outputs you're aiming for, and you discuss that internally within your company and with your client, whoever that may be that internally within a company, if you were, say, in a water company and your client is another department, or if you're a consultant and it's for, a company that you're doing the work for. So that's quite a classic one to do, but it sort of expects that you're doing some level of project management and some level of resource management, which I would say is worthwhile doing to some level because it gives you that wider breadth of knowledge and experience. But you don't have to for this one. So another way of looking at it is the fact that, say, there's a new regulatory change that means that something different and wonderful is coming in, and you might be halfway through a project and the new regulatory point comes into play, and then you look at it and you go, well, actually, because this has come into play, I don't think what we're outputting is going to be what's needed. So you might then go, well, actually, it's purely technical in approach. And you're then saying, well, actually, I think we should change scope. And therefore, because of that, you're then discussing it maybe with your project manager, maybe it with your resource manager, and maybe with your client, and then talking it through. And you can do that entirely as the technical expert in your field. If you're in a water company, again, those things come through thick and fast at the moment, from our lovely different regulators. So you might have something like a new update from the EA or from Ofwat or from DEFRA, or if you're in a different company from SUPR or NRW, and you can then therefore have that position to say, well, this new change came into play, and because of that, this is the knock-on effect, and this is what I needed to change what we're doing. So you can do it as a project manager, resource manager, or as a technical lead in terms of then, but it's about showing how you did things, then move those forward. For B4, people get really stuck on this one because when you read it, you think you have to have the ability to plan, implement solutions, and monitor continual performance. And people naturally think when you mean solutions, you mean physically putting something in the ground. And it doesn't actually just mean that. So if you are able to do one of those ones in terms of I built a massive big scheme to resolve flooding, and then I was able to have time to performance check it against some storms afterwards, brilliant, use it, great. But a lot of people don't have that within the scope of the work they're doing because of the handoffs between different departments and between a consultant and a client. So then you end up in the situation of, well, what are you implementing and how are you monitoring it? So again, it could be I have implemented changes because of a new technical requirement. So for instance, the change from Red Up version 3 to version 4 of rainfall and changes of your company approach for it and how it's then implemented, that could be a solution you've implemented and how you've monitored how it has been applied across a variety of different projects. That, for instance, could be one. Or you've changed the way the growth is applied, or the way something is specifically designed. So, for instance, there's a huge amount of different changes happening now around storm overflows. So, it could be something like that that you've implemented, and then you're monitoring how it has been applied within the different projects and within your company. If it was like that, it would be good if it's across a variety of different projects and different teams rather than one specific project, unless that project is a whacking big one. So just sort of think about that in terms of is it big enough to really highlight the fact that you can implement a scale of significant change of a significant size and of a significant number of people to then make it, fit the sort of the level of expectations. Um, so yeah, so that's I think what I'd say about these two competencies. While I've been happily chatting away, Nikki, have we got more questions to answer now?
We have. Thank you very
Hey.
much. Well done. Brilliant. So thank you for those questions that have been coming in. So we will start. This is a question directly for Graham. So we'll pitch it to Graham and then hopefully the others can add in if need be. So I have been in the industry for just over 3 years and have recently moved into a SUDS focused team looking at where is best to implement SUDS. I used to be more on the modelling team. I was wondering what advice you would give to me to make the most of this transition for chartership skills.
Cool. Shall I answer? I'll attempt to answer that.
Yeah.
I did read it before, so sort of managed to have a bit of time to gather my thoughts on that question. Thanks, Ruben. Yeah, so I think what I'd say on that is obviously, yeah, if you've previously been more focused on solely modeling, and that's a really good base from which to to move off into SUDS more generally. And I think that what you'll probably be looking to do in your new role is to think about some of the wider opportunities and constraints that might be present around guiding the placement of those SUDs and all the other aspects that you need to bring into that. And then I think linking that into what we're talking about here in terms of the B3 and B4 competencies, it is helpful to sort of understand that, you know, when you're looking to cite these opportunities, it is really a case of being able to respond to all the different risks and constraints and opportunities that arise, and being able to manage those and find a way of kind of communicating that to a stakeholder, to a client, etc. And that's what will really put you in good stead in terms of these competencies. And it's usually quite useful to try and sort of assess initially in a quite simple way of what the constraints are, and then build on from that to sort of build it up and add more sort of context to them as you progress through a project. So hopefully that's helpful.
Great. Thank you. We've got some questions that are sort of more focused on the B3, B4 questions. So we'll just pick those up now. I think Margaret's kind of answered a bit of this, but we'll just go again with if you've got any other inputs from the panel. What are the most common mistakes that you think that you made, or you could see people making when writing up your B3 evidence for Chartership? Does anyone want to go with that one?
I'll try and answer, just touching back to what Margaret said.
Yeah.
And I think as early career professionals, we often forget how much influence we have in terms of making a change. We often think we need to be in senior leadership positions to make a change, but we are close to the actions. We are close to the data. We can see things that could potentially go wrong. So that's the moment to put up our hands and say, hold on a minute, you know, we shouldn't just do what it says on the tin. So just to touch up again back to what Margaret said, for example, an example could be you are monitoring a flow survey. If you look out of the window, it's completely dry. And typically you would do a 12 weeks flow survey, and you're not going to get any storms. Maybe at week 10, you need to start having that conversation with the client to say, you know what, by terminating the flow survey, you're not going to get the correct rainfalls that you need, and therefore you need to do something different here. Maybe an extension to flow survey. Yes, that has an impact to the cost, and probably you can justify it by saying not having an accurate model now means that we would be spending quite a lot of money later in order to have the problem. So there is a change to be had, and you need to communicate that to the stakeholders and getting agreement. And then you need to continue to monitor that change by extending it. Are you going to extend it for 18 weeks? What happens if you don't have rainfall for the next 18 weeks? So have a backup plan as well, a B plan. So for me, don't forget the influence we can have as early career professionals. So, and constantly question it. Just be curious. I think quite a lot of panelists already highlighted the fact need to question the acronyms and things. So questioning isn't a bad thing, but don't be the blocker. Just constantly question, but not have any backup solutions for it. So do the research, and that will help you really well on your B4 competency as well. So that's my input. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sahani, you've got your hand up there.
Yep. So specifically on B3, I think most of it was covered by you, Cam, but especially from like someone who is in their early career, I would say understanding the scope, your scope, whether you're in a technical team or in a project management team, understanding your scope is really critical, because if we haven't understood the scope well, it gets difficult to identify if it's a change or not. So that's one thing. And another thing is because when I was writing my B3 competency, not writing in a direct way. So for example, my sentence was like, there was a requirement to undertake additional sensitivity test or whatever, and it was being undertaken or it was done. And so I missed the whole part. Like, definitely it looks like there is some change, but how did this change was communicated? There was no, like, sign of who did the early warning or who issued the early warning. Was there any compensation event? So, as Margaret said, you don't need to have a project manager role. Anyone can, identify a change if they have understood their scope, but specifying your role clearly, and then mentioning that how this change, if you identified and you initiated change, you can communicate that change to project manager, and then project manager can issue early warning to client. So that clearly defining that whole process from identifying to communicating and then implementing change in your answer can be I would say a direct and really helpful, even from reviewers point of view as well. So that's my take on B3.
That's great. Thank you. Should pick up another question. What criteria would a task problem solution need to meet to be used as evidence for B3 and B4? Would making small tools count?
An interesting one, isn't it? In terms of what a small tool, and I suppose we call things small tools, but if they're used across a variety of different projects and you can articulate the savings that have been managed within it, that could work. So, for instance, if you were saying, I was aware this process was required across 20 models, or even a whole water company's models for the DWMP. Let's go a bit bigger. So, it was needed for every single assessment for the DWMP for a whole company, and we all needed to pull out the flood risk position for it. So I built a little command tool to go in, rip out the results, and put it into a required analysis tool. So long as you could then say it was then something that was spread across a variety of teams, in terms of who's doing the work, that you needed to work through and agree internally and externally that it was worthwhile to do, and and the savings that were associated with it. Yeah, you could. I think if it's a small tool you've done just for one project and it's then not been deployed on other things, I think that wouldn't quite make the bar in my head.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Margaret. Cool. So we'll pick up another one. This is from John McCurry. Should I be using one different example project to answer the whole theme and different projects for each theme, so of A, B, C, and D? So that's another Margaret question, is it?
Yeah, that'd be good to hear what other people did.
Yeah.
So as someone who reads it, if you give me 20 different projects I need to get my head around, that's quite a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if you were to, I always do it as like bullet points to start with, or suggest that to people and say, what are the best examples for it all? And you then might highlight to say, well, actually, there's 5 projects that collectively across the board, I think are the right projects to talk around. And it might be that you then you then say, well, actually, I'll use the same one for B1 and B3, but I'll use a different one for B2 because of how it goes. But so long as you've got that thread through it, it'll still be okay. You should, for each of them, though, be putting at least 2 examples, if not 3 in. So if you should have 2, if not 3 examples for B3 and 2, if not 3 examples for B4. If you only put one whacking one in, first off, you may not make it through the written review. So someone reviewing and reading your document, they might say it's not enough information, or they may say it's sort of okay, but then when you get through to the actual verbal interview, they will then quiz you for other examples. And if you can't find other examples, then they'll say, well, actually, you haven't consistently been doing it. So you need to show that you've consistently done this by showing that you've done it at a variety of different projects, which comes down to the point of remembering to write as you go along so that you remember what you've done on each project. So I don't know if people have got examples of exactly what they put in their examples.
For me, so I used a specific project where for both of these, where I needed to manage a change. I managed that change, and so I talked about it in B3, and then I monitored the performance into B4 as well. So you can use the same project over the two competencies, but yeah, as Margaret said, I'd say definitely add the additional projects so people can show your breadth of experience. I think for me, Cam, you have a hand up.
Yes. Just to go back to what Margaret and both you said as well, in my case, I have used my BIM implementation consultant kind of work, and that went across for 3 years. So over that period, the tasks were different, although it's the same project, but I specifically spent quite a lot of time trying to refine the structure of supplier information, for example. And that happened to be my B4, and then I could monitor the performance of implementing that tool or the structure, and make refinement to the process. And the management came in terms of how you transfer a culture, change a culture of people using a different environment to the other. And similarly, you could be working on a bigger project, but the particular task within those project or that one project could involve multiple times you're doing a change or multiple time you're doing a tool or optioning. Just to go back to that tool element that originally asked about, Margaret answered. It could be that you're developing a tool and going back to the original kind of talks about things being insignificant, but that small tool could have led to a bigger change in multiple adaptation and across multiple projects and multiple programs. So it's just focusing on then keeping a record of it and understanding what the impact as a result of you undertaking that specific task and could be in a single project.
Great, thank you. We have a question here from Alyssa, who may soon be introduced to Margaret because she's starting her new job at Yorkshire Water in September. She wants to become chartered. How soon after she starts should she be thinking about documenting B3 and B4?
Yeah, well, welcome to Yorkshire. It'd be nice to meet you in person with her. As you've heard from probably some of the other people saying when they've applied, it is purely personal in terms of when you feel comfortable going for your chartership. It is not the same as any other interview that you would have been through before. It is about seeing that you have the breadth and depth required to be defined as chartered. And so you do need to have that breadth and depth before you go for it. Otherwise, it could be a really bad experience. And no one wants that. Everyone wants people to pass. So first thing is always to get a mentor, which there is a whole program, and there is in Yorkshire, there will be in all the big companies. So work out where that is, get a mentor in terms of someone who can help you. And then I would always start by outlining, just understanding all of the A, B's, threes, all the different ones. So you know what they are. And then, as I said, I would always do bullet points to start with to say, oh, I did something a bit here, I did something a bit here. I wouldn't write up any more than that because by the time you get to the actual application, you'll probably have changed your mind 5 times in terms of what you're going to talk about. But you talk with your mentor about, is what you've done, is it interesting, is it worthwhile, where does it sit, what else experience do you need, and then you'll build that up. I've seen people come for their chartership after 4 years and fly through it. I've seen some people come for it after 12 years and struggle. So I think it really does depend on the individual. I don't know if anyone else wants to add in.
Again, I can't stop talking for whatever reason. Don't force examples. So if you haven't really got it, don't, just because you wanted to go through the chartership process, which is a great experience, but don't force it. You get found out during the discussions. That's the whole point of the discussion. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it when I've been through. I felt it like I was, dreading before going through it, but the interview was amazing. It's one of the best discussions that I had with that's where the confidence comes in, I think. But anyways, so you need to feel confident and don't force your examples just to tick a box.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And there's also the membership grade as well that you can do, sort of early careers stage. I think that's about 2 to 3 years experience, isn't it? So you can kind of look to do that as well. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Should we do a couple more? Is everybody happy? So this one's to you, Cam. As you love talking so much, we'll go here. Can competency evidence be drawn from both UK and overseas experience? I have over 12 years international engineering experience and just over a year in the UK. Can I use examples from all of my previous roles?
I had this discussion with one of my mentee, person that I mentor. I think personally, I think you can, as long as you can draw some kind of relationship or comparison between, well, I don't know whether you have to, but I feel it's better if you draw comparison between what happens in the UK versus what happens abroad. And that could be a great discussion to have as well. So I don't see any harm in using that. Margaret, your thoughts?
I mean, I think I use some of my girl guiding experience in my application. So, if it's applicable, it's talk it through with your mentor, the person who's signing off, and making sure you're okay with it. But if it's within the right realms, then it's absolutely fine. It is about you showing your breadth and depth, and that might be from previous projects and world you've worked in outside of the more standard water industry.
Brilliant. Do you think there are some small ways that sort of early careers professionals can start to influence change as well as just reacting to it? I guess. I don't know if anybody's going. Oh, Graham's unmuted.
Yeah, I mean, it's just strategically to come in there. The thing I've sort of built on in the last few years, it being involved in projects from concept through to delivery, is being part of discussions around risk and risk management. And if there are discussions going on like that, I'd push yourself forward to sort of be involved in that, and even like coordinating and maintaining a risk register on behalf of a project. They look scary initially, but actually once you get control of those documents and be able to chair discussions around risk, it's quite empowering and really good example to be able to use in B3 and probably B4 as well. So yeah, that'd be my advice.
Great, thanks, Graham. Sahani?
Yeah, I think Graham has covered that. Yeah. Again, I'm going to focus on understand the scope really well. I mean, if you don't get chance to understand, if it's a multidisciplinary project, it might be difficult to understand the overall project scope. But if you have understood your own area of expertise scope well, then you will be able to identify change. And as Graham rightly said, joining the PM meetings or understanding the project plan of work can really help you to identify the change and then communicate if there is any.
I'd also not, don't undersell your ability to do your own bits of research and think things through. So, for instance, everyone can sign up to get updates from, say, Utility Week, and they will be sent to your emails. So, some of them maybe nothing you're really that interested because there are other utility updates from, say, the energy sector, sort of interesting, but not really that applicable. But sometimes they've got some which are really on the nose in our industry. And so one was sent to me this morning oh, what about this one? Isn't this interesting? And there's no reason why anyone can't see them and anyone can't read them and anyone can't then go, well, how does this apply to what I'm doing? To then see how they could utilize it. Now, I do appreciate that you can do that and it still be in the world of that's not within the scope of this project. But there's no harm, is there, in terms of putting that forward? And it may be that then that builds up your experience and knowledge to then be able to say, well, actually, you can help with some of the wider thought pieces which occur within any company. So yeah, look out for those things. There's other things just on the DEFRA website, Ofwat website, that anyone can see, EA website. So, you know, if you want to sort of be involved in those things, well, go have a little look, have a little read yourself, bit of, you know, nighttime reading, and then you can implement it on your projects as one, you know, with understanding the scope appropriately of your current projects.
Brilliant. Thank you. I guess that comes as well with confidence, doesn't it? And
That's yeah.
and backing yourself that you do have a valuable opinion and point of view. So definitely bring it. That's great. Thank you. I've got one more question. I have 10 years experience across the water, wastewater sector, and finding that I have notes from previous projects which may apply to B3 and B4, but unfortunately not into a lot of detail. As in specific technical information, would I need to fill all that out, i.e. the specific flat valve on a CSO outfalls, etc.?
The simple answer is no. If you're going for chartered CIWEM, it is not a technical chartership. If you were going for chartered engineer, you would be expected to know more about the technical areas. So depends what you're applying for. And that's the same for the chartered environment and chartered scientist. It's a little bit more technical there as well. Whereas, yeah, for the chartered CIWEM, it's not a technical interview. No one's going to ask you exactly the flat valve size and what head loss you would expect associated with it. It's the generics of why did you need to install things? What was it required for? What was it trying to do? You know, why now? It's those sort of questions that people would be asking.
Brilliant. Right. Well, thank you very much to all of our panel there. I think we're going to wrap that up from there. So just a little bit about CIWEM, some of the upcoming events that we've got. So we have a call for papers deadline by the end of Friday. That's for the Wales National Flood Conference, which is in person in Cardiff. We also have the CIWEM Early Careers Professional Conference in London, which you can get involved in. And also particular highlight of the year for us, which is the UDG annual conference, which is in Birmingham again this year. It's always a great event, so please get signed up for that. Yeah, so I'd just like to finish off by saying a massive thank you to everyone on the panel. Really appreciate your input and your insight. It's been really valuable answering all those questions. It's been fabulous. So yeah, thank you very much. I think we will, we should have answered all the questions, and once this has been approved, hopefully it'll be up on the YouTube channel. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you very much, everyone.